Hi, how you guys doing? Welcome back to my channel. My name's Jolene, and so I have a little cold, but I'm sure you'll be able to hear it. I'm in my living room, and I was like, I need to pop on here because my I had some time without any interruption, and I need to read. So I thought I would grab a book. I have my bookshelf behind me, and I, I started reading The Beetle, which is like a horror book by Richard Marsh. And I think I'll just start reading it because I need to just relax a little bit. Maybe you do too. So, The Beetle, sorry, have you heard of this book? It's haunted classic, and it was written originally in, let me see, does it say? 1897. So I don't think hopefully I won't get a problem with reading this, like the other books that asked me to stop. So what I'll do is I'll read the introduction, and maybe this will be a series called The Beetle. It's pretty thick, but all right, nonetheless. Here we go. Introduction, style, point of view, and the Beetle. Eerie fiction, particularly the eerie fiction of the Victorian and Edwardian periods, depends more deeply on the style than do most current works. So attention to style is needed to support the implications of the tale being told, and depending on the subgenre, style can either clarify or conceal, and the story will rise or fall on how the style supports the nature of the narrative. All right, so I'm going to stop reading the introduction. I think I'm just going to read where I left off. And you can decide whether or not you're going to read this book because I need to keep reading. Okay, so I'm on page 11, and here we go. What it was that was with me, I could not tell. I could not even guess. It was as though something in my mental organization had been stricken by a sudden paralysis. It may seem childish to use such language, but I was overwrought, played out, physically speaking, at my last counter, and in an instant, without the slightest warning, I was conscious of a very curious sensation, the like of which I had never felt before, and the like of which I pray I never may feel again. A sensation of panic fear. I remained rooted to the spot on which I stood, not daring to move, fearing to draw my breath. I felt the presence with me in the room was something strange, something evil. I do not know how long I stood there, spellbound, but certainly for some considerable space of time. By degrees, as nothing moved, nothing has seen, nothing was heard, and nothing happened, I made an effort to better play the man. I knew that at the moment I played the cure, and endeavored to ask myself of what it was I was afraid. I was shivering at my own imaginings. What could be in the room to have suffered me to open the window and to enter unopposed? Whatever it was, I was surely to fool, as great coward as I was, or why permit unchecked by burglarious entry? Since I had been allowed to enter, the probability was that I should be at liberty to retreat, and I was sensible of much keener desire to retreat than I had ever had to enter. I had to put the greatest amount of pressure on myself before I could summon up sufficient courage to enable me to even turn my head upon my shoulders. And the moment I did, I turned it back again. What constrained me to save my soul, I could not have said. But I was constrained. My heart was palpitating in my bosom. I couldn't hear it beat, but I felt it trembling so that I could scarcely stand, and I was overwhelmed by a fresh flood of terror. I stared in front of me with eyes in which, had it been light, would have been seen the frenzy of unreasoning fear. My ears were strained so that I listened with an acuteness of tension which was painful. Something moved slightly with so slight a sound that it would scarcely have been audible to the ears save mine, but I heard, and I was looking in the direction from which the movement came, and as I looked, I saw in front of me two specks of light. They had not been there a moment before, that I would swear, and they were there now. There were eyes. I told myself they were eyes. I had heard how cat's eyes gleam in the dark, though I had never seen them, and said to myself that these were cat's eyes, that the thing in front of me was nothing but a cat. But I knew I lied, and I knew that these were eyes, and I knew that they were not cat's eyes, but the eyes they were, I did not know, nor dared to think. They moved towards me. The creature to which the eyes belonged was coming closer. So intense was my desire to fly that I would much rather have died than stood there still. Yet I could not control a limb. My limbs were as if they were not mine. The eyes came on noiselessly. At first they were between 2 and 3 feet from the ground, but on a sudden there was a squelching sound, as if some yielding body had been squashed upon the floor. The eyes vanished, to reappear a moment afterward, at what I judged to be a distance of some 6 inches from the floor, and they came again. And so it seemed that the creature, whatever it was to which the eyes belonged, was, after all, but small. Why I did not obey the frantic longing which I had to flee from, I cannot tell. I only know I could not. I take it that the stress and privations which I had lately undergone, and which I was, even then, still undergoing, had much to do with my conduct at the moment, and with the part I played in all the following. So ordinarily, I believe that I have as high a spirit as an average man and as solid as a resolution. But when one has been dragged through the valley of humiliation and plunged again and again into the waters of bitterness and privation, a man can be constrained to a course of action of which, in his happier moments, he would have deemed himself incapable. I know this of my own knowledge. Slowly the eyes came on with a strange slowness. As they came, they moved from side to side, as if the owner walked unevenly. Nothing could have exceeded the horror with which I waited their approach, except my incapacity to escape them. Not for an instant did my glance pass from them. I could not have shut my eyes for all the gold in the world contains, so that as they came closer, I had to look right down to what seemed to be almost level of my feet, and at last they reached my feet. They never paused. On a sudden, I felt something on my boot, and with a sense of shrinking horror, nausea rendering me momentarily more helpless, I realized that the creature was beginning to ascend my legs, to climb my body. Even then, what it was, I could not tell. It mounted me apparently with as much ease as if I had been horizontal instead of perpendicular. It was as though it were some gigantic spider, a spider of nightmares, a monstrous conception of some dreadful vision. It pressed lightly against my clothing with might, for all the world have been spiders' legs. There was an amazing host of them. I felt the pressure of each separate one. They embraced me softly, sticking as if the creature glued and unglued them. Each time it moved higher and higher. It had gained my loins. It was moving towards the pits of my stomach. The helplessness with which I suffered its invasion was not the least part of my agony. It was the helplessness which we now, uh, in a dreadful dream, I understood quite well that if I did but give myself a hearty shake, the creature would fall off, that I had not a muscle at my command. As the creature mounted, his eyes began to play the part of two small lamps. They positively emitted rays of light. By their rays, I began to perceive faint outlines of its body. It seemed larger than I had supposed. Either the body itself was slightly phosphorescent or was a peculiar yellow hue. It gleamed in darkness. What it was there was nothing to positively show, but the impression grew upon me that it was some member of the spider family, some monstrous member of the like of which I had never heard or read. It was heavy, so heavy indeed that I wondered how, with so slight a pressure, it managed to retain its hold, that it did not so by the aid of some adhesive substance on the ends of its legs. I was sure I could feel it stick. Its weight increased as it ascended, and it smelt. Ugh. I had been for some time aware that it emitted an unpleasant, fetid odor. As it neared my face, it became so intense as to be unbearable. It was at my chest. I became more and more conscious of an uncomfortable wobbling motion, as if each time it breathed, its body had heaved. Its forelegs touched the bare skin about the base of my neck. They stuck to it. Shall I ever forget the feeling? I have it often in my dreams while it hung on the with those front. It seemed to draw its other legs up after it. It crawled up my neck with hideous slowness, a quarter of an inch at a time. Its weight compelled me to brace my muscles in my back. It reached my chin, it touched my lips, and I stood still and bore it all, while it enveloped my face with its huge, slimy, evil smelling body, and it embraced me with its myriad legs. The horror of it made me so mad. I shook myself like one stricken by a shaking ague. I shook the creature off. It squashed upon the floor, shrieking like some lost spirit. Turning, I dashed towards the window. As I went, my foot catching in some obstacle, I fell headlong to the floor. Picking myself up as quickly as I could, I resumed my flight, rain or no rain. Oh, to get out of that room! I already had my hand upon the sill. In another instant, I should have been over it. Then, despite my hunger, my fatigues, let anyone have stopped me if they could when someone behind me struck a light. So, before this happened, uh, the man who is speaking was walking for days and days and days, who came upon a house. And because it was raining, went inside, and it was dark. And yeah, so was he delusional? I don't know. But it's like how fear gets you, doesn't it? Fear gets you. So The Beetle by Richard Marsh. Um, Interesting and fantasy. We love fantasy. So anyway, that's it for today.